joining for this week's Off the Lift session. We are very excited today to have Aviv joining us all the way from California. He's going to be sharing with us a bit about, well, I don't want to give any of it away, coral, gardening, restoration, and a bit more about the business side of it as well.
Yes.
And with the Green Room being ocean orientated, we're all ocean lovers living right here on the coastline. We thought it appropriate just to have Aviv share with us a bit about his passion and love for the ocean as well. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time and hope you guys enjoy it.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to start by thanking the Green Room for being an awesome space. I started here a couple weeks ago seeing the story behind Endless Summer, which was really cool. I want to thank Steph for a super cool conversation and the invitation, and all of you for taking some time to listen to me. And yes, I'm talking about coral restoration today. The company I work for is based in French Polynesia, so coral is being very important to their environment, and we're just going to go ahead and hop in. So yeah. So Coral Gardeners, it was founded in 2017, and it was by a local community of island kids. So they saw that their coral reef in front of their homes was bleaching and dying right in front of their eyes. So these are kids that surf those waves, they fish in those reefs, and they rely heavily on the ecosystem services that coral reefs provide. And they found out pretty soon that the scientists were doing research, but there wasn't an active restoration process. So while they were studying the biodiversity that was in the coral reef, it was dying away in front of them. And so our founder, Tiswan, who is very driven, said, I'm not going to go to school for 8 years in order to become a marine biologist, to come home to see my reefs, dead in front of my eyes. So he got his island friends together, and they founded Coral Gardeners. And our mission statement is to revolutionize ocean conservation and generate a global movement to save the reef. That's what we do. I'm going to do the first part of the conversation today about coral reef restoration, and then the second part specifically about what I do for the Coral Gardeners. So for the very start, we can go on to the next slide. We're going to show you our restoration process. So before you hit the video, our team, which has been guided by our head of reef restoration, who has 25 years of experience doing coral reef restoration in the Maldives. She came to Coral Gardeners and is in charge of all of us. And we've also learned from the techniques that Dr. David Vaughn and Dr. Austin Kirby, who is called the grandfather of reef restoration. He looks like an ocean pirate. These are techniques that they taught us and that we've learned. So right before, so we go out to the lagoon itself and look for corals that are large enough to prove to us that they have survived the past couple bleaching events. And I'll go back a little bit to explain what a bleaching event is. Coral reefs are extremely intricate and delicate ecosystems, and they are very dependent on ocean temperature and the nutrients that are in the water. In the past 15 to 20 years, there have been 4 or 5 major bleaching events across the entire world, which have killed 30 to 50% of the worldwide coral reefs. So in the lagoon itself, these corals will turn white. They'll expel the algae that lives inside of them and gives the nutrients to them. And if the water temperature doesn't go down and the corals don't become de-stressed in a short amount of time, they will actually die and not be able to continue and get the algae back inside of them. So when a coral is 20 centimeters or larger in diameter, that means that they've survived the past couple of bleaching events, and we call them super corals. So that just means that they're more resilient to temperature change. It's not a scientific term. So we take fragments of those corals, no more than 10% of them, and we tie them onto the ropes. And this is our process of how you do that. It's a lot easier with a visual explanation. So you there you go. So you take the fragment and you stick it into the 3-rope system, tie that back up, and we fit about 25 corals to 1 rope. Sorry about that. 25 corals to one rope. There'll be 12 to 15 ropes per nursery. And at our largest restoration site, there are 15 coral nursery tables. Once we tie those to the ropes and then onto the nurseries, we monitor those corals for about 12 to 18 months until they grow to this size. And during that time, a restoration team constantly cleans them to get the algae off of them. And at the same time, monitor the health and growth of them. So these corals, which used to be this size, are now the size of a coral that you would see on the reef. And we take fragments of those and plant them back onto the reef. So yes, this is my friend Mayote, who is an island local, come from a fisherman family. And him and his brother are kind of the core of coral gardeners. They really have the heart and everything like that. So that is our restoration process. And now we get to move on to what I do for the organization. So I'm what you could call the business guy. I started as an e-commerce manager. I had a background in digital marketing. But I saw pretty soon that there was a huge opportunity to involve both the private and public sector in our business partnerships. And so I created a program called We the Reef, and it's a membership program for businesses all over the world to join by donating a percentage of their gross sales. And we give them digital assets, we give them educational material to educate their community. And at the same time, we give them impact reports so that they know that their money is used in the right way. They can abide by their key performance indicators and everything along those lines. To give a scope of what coral reef ecosystems provide to the entire world, it is estimated, and there are a lot of different estimations here, but anywhere from $375 billion to $2 trillion per year is what the coral reef ecosystems provide in the tourism industry, coastal development, and for the fishing industry as well. They're extremely valuable for coastal protection. For anyone that's seen a latest code red swell that went through the South Pacific, if it wasn't for the coral reefs, the entire south side of Tahiti and Moorea, where our island is located right next to Tahiti, would be wiped out, and all the homes that these people live in would be destroyed. The coral reefs actually absorb almost 97% of the power from the wave there. So very important for the livelihoods of the people that live there, the fishing communities. And at the same time, when you look at it from the business side, this is something that is on a global scale. So not only does the French Polynesian government rely heavily on the ecosystem services that coral reefs provide for tourism and going all the way up to even the whale watching and things that are on that scale. But it actually proves something that is way more important for the future. So doing tests on major coral reef areas, seeing the rapid decline in coral reefs and also decline in tourism as well, has put more effort into seeing actually how much these ecosystems provide. And with this research, it's seen that the return on investment for doing restoration, also making sure that ecosystems on land don't erode into water, there's anywhere from a 3 to 40 to 1 return on investment. And that goes for governments, and that goes for also private businesses as well. So in the future, it's kind of two ways. Either we move towards restoration and invest in protecting these environments, and that'll yield fruit for local businesses and the governments, or we don't, and those things will steadily decline. Obviously, we're fighting a tough battle because as climate change continues to happen and ocean temperatures continue to rise, those are things that we are going to be working against. But it's very important to, first of all, raise awareness on what coral reefs are, raise awareness on why they're important, and then educate people on how to save them. So by a show of hands, how many people know that there are coral reefs here in South Africa? Yeah, I see a bunch of nods. That's awesome. So they look a lot different than what the coral reefs look like in French Polynesia. These are deep sea corals. They're mostly soft corals. But as you go up the coast, and I did my research as well, from Cape Vital all the way to Mozambique is where you have coral reefs that look a lot similar to what they're like in French Polynesia. So our organization is moving outside of French Polynesia. We have an internationalization plan. And with that, we need to raise 30 million euros in funding in order to go to new locations like Fiji, Panama, Mozambique, and other locations around the world to help their restoration organizations. They have their methods that work very well, but in the modern world, where we rely on social media and other ways to connect, our organization has kind of found a sweet spot in making people believe in what we do and understand that there is an impact. So I work in connecting small to medium-sized businesses and shooting for larger businesses to help us in spreading that word. And this map right here is showing our 28 members that are around the world in the first 3 months of this program being live. And that ranges across 11 countries and 14 different industries. That's people that make swimwear out of ocean plastic, people that find sustainable technological solutions for larger corporations, local surf brands, and many more. And so with our first members, they have been our founding members and have been working closely with me. But the goal by the end of the year and moving into next year is to have over 100 members and to start connecting these people around the world. Because the future that I see and the future that we need to work towards is business working together with the natural environment to protect it and also show that their consumers can consume in a environmentally friendly way. One of the quotes that I like very well is that a business itself acts as an ecological system. You have your consumer and you need to adapt to what their needs and wants are. And so as we move forward with the UN Sustainability Goals, restoration decade that we're in right now, consumers themselves are really looking to actually have an impact with the products that they buy. And so here in JBay Surf Village, a little mecca as far as surfing culture, when you have people within the board riders community, people that are local shapers as well, finding ways to have sustainable solutions to more environmentally friendly surfboards, to packaging and things like that, our We the Reef members will actually work together to open source their information and find sustainable solutions for businesses. Something that is very exciting and also new as far as the global economy is doing circular economy. And that is to where your resources and your byproducts are going to be used and sourced from other people. So when we have members that are within the same country or within the same community and they have byproducts that they need to get rid of and it works as a resource for someone else, these are the connections that we're going to make and how I believe we are going to change the world. I believe I touched on all my points. The last slide right here is just showing you kind of what the coral reefs look like in South Africa, as they are a lot different than French Polynesia. But these are the deep sea corals that you guys have that are a lot softer. But the ecosystem that you have here, and obviously a lot of people had seen the movie My Octopus Teacher, are the kelp forests. And it's also very similar to where I grew up in Santa Cruz. And these environments are also extremely important to the ocean and the health of the ocean. And so a lot like coral reefs themselves that do photosynthesis, bring in carbon dioxide and release oxygen, that's what kelp forests do as well. And so I know that there are organizations that do kelp forest reforestation here, and that's very important, Cape Town all the way to JBay. And so working as one ocean and doing raising awareness on these things as well is how we move forward and make sure that we protect our environments and are able to surf these amazing waves that I've been able to surf for the past month, and I'm extremely lucky to do so. So I think that's it for me right now. I appreciate your time, and I'm very much looking forward to your questions. Thank you. Yeah, so coral bleaching. So a coral reef itself is an animal, and it's made out of a calcium carbonate skeleton. what lives inside the coral are the coral polyps, which is an algae. And that's actually what give the corals color. So that's why you see pink, green, purple, red corals. So when the ocean temperature rises and it goes up, the coral becomes stressed and it will release the algae, which gives it almost 90% of its nutrients. And that's when it goes back to its calcium color of being white. And a coral can survive in that state for a few weeks. But eventually, when it's not getting the nutrients it needs, it'll eventually die out and become that kind of rubble that you've seen. So with a rising ocean temperature, no, because the coral reefs themselves live in the salt water. So bringing them outside, you can bring them inside a contained facility, but in the water itself, you can't necessarily put a dome around them and protect them from a rising temperature. Yeah, so most of the corals that we work with are in the Polyleporidae or Acaroporidae family, and those are specific to French Polynesia. And those are ones that are within the same family and are structured the same way as far as they grow. I'm not the scientist, obviously, but the way that works is very much considering the local environment that they are in. So if we came to a place like South Africa, the research would need to be very much localized as far as those corals to their environment. Amazing questions. I'm glad that you asked, because this is very important for us. So from the start, our process is very much intricate, and it is very expensive, and it is not scalable. We have been very lucky to receive Dr. Drew Gray onto our team, and he was the chief engineer for Tesla for their self-driving cars, and he is developing underwater cameras that will track and monitor the reef 24/7, and also for the biodiversity of the reef to see actually how it works, because you can't have a person underwater at all times. And this guy is a mad genius, and he's talking about doing coral reef factories and using robots to automate these systems. What we have implemented so far are those cameras that are capturing the visual data and also data on salinity, ocean temperature, and things like that. But we are using underwater drones to 3D map the reef, as well as drones above the water, to where we can basically see where we've restored, which is about the size of a football field, versus where we haven't restored, to see how that works. And we're also going to be working with Dr. Austin, who has created above ground nurseries. And they use a process called microfragmentation. So it's cutting those corals even smaller. And they found that those corals actually exponentially grow. And those are on cookies within an above ground nursery that has water pumped into it from the ocean. And at that point, you can automate the cutting process and you can automate the growing process as far as cleaning. Right now, the labor-intensive process that isn't able to be automatic is the planting, because you need to be able to see at what part you can put the coral. And I should actually show the planting process, but it's very much, you need to find the nooks and crannies of the coral reef itself. You need to clean what they call the coral boomy of all the algae that's already on it, that's grown over it since it's been dead. And then plant the corals, and we use marine cement to actually solidify those. So we're on the process to make it more sustainable as far as the monetary attribution, because planting one coral is not going to make a difference. We are on a mission this year to plant 15,000 corals, which will double what we have done in the past 4 years. But on top of that, the technological solutions will have to advance. So we have confirmed that Fiji will be our next location, and that's because of the infrastructure that they already have there. That is one of the locations that Dr. Austin has in his mission to plant 1 million corals. And so the infrastructure and the research is already there, and the local community is on board, because what we do as an organization is we're not gathering volunteers from all around the world to fly there and plant one coral and feel good about it. we want to create an economic solution to where local communities, people who are fishermen that have been put out of jobs, are actually going to become coral gardeners. And that becomes a way, great for local environment, but at the same time, you can get paid to restore your local reef and then also, reap those benefits as well. So do you have a follow-up question? Because I don't know if I answered everything. Yeah. So there's kind of a structure that we follow to where, obviously now I'm biased, I want to come to South Africa, but the scientific backing needs to be there, the community needs to be on board, and we also need to be helpful, because there are other reef restoration organizations of the world that are doing a very good job at what they do, but we come in with kind of an X factor as far as content creation, some of our technological solutions. So if there's a need for us to be there, that's where we go to first. And one step at a time. We're a small team. Okay, so in a restoration area, I have not personally seen a bleaching event among the corals that we have planted, but we are planting corals in a stressed area. So you are planting corals sometimes next to a coral that is bleached. And like we said, the corals themselves that are bleaching or that are very small, we have to almost go past those and target the ones that are resilient and are large, because the threshold is now under what it used to be during a coral bleaching event. But we need to make sure that those corals that we fragment, grow for a year and a half, and plant back on have survived those events before.
Okay, so you haven't actually seen it yet?
I haven't seen it for the corals that you're saying for the corals that we've planted, right? No, we haven't seen those yet. The restoration process takes long, and we've been doing this for about 5 years, so it's coming. Yeah, it's a good question, though. Great question as well from the marine biologist. So this is a really good point, and it's something that has been kind of under scrutiny from the marine biologist world. So basically, with 30 to 50% of the coral reefs already being dead or condemned, the biodiversity has gone way down. And this is for the marine environment, and it's also for us as well. This is where we get medicines. This is where we use a lot of the actual technological research for cancer and things like that. So it's already suffering in that sense. And there are other ways to improve biodiversity with coral reef restoration. That is capturing larvae during the reproduction times and basically manually making sure that those larvae reproduce and then releasing them back onto the reef. We've chosen this method and it has worked the best for French Polynesia, but it's not, the end-all be-all method as far as reef restoration. Because right now, we're taking corals that are already there, they're the same ones, and we're multiplying them. So the biodiversity definitely struggles, but as far as maintaining a health of a coral reef, it's been the most successful and the most scalable in French Polynesia so far. Great questions. You got one?
I was just going to say, I think we're going to cut it off there.
Sure.
If anybody does have any other questions, I'm sure Aviv
I'll be
would
around.
not mind sticking around for a bit to answer them and maybe show those videos of the planting process.
Yeah, I can definitely show videos for whoever doesn't have meetings. It's super cool, and our content creators do a really good job.
So yeah, thank you everyone that joined. We really appreciate it, and you guys should come again for the next one.
Yes, I really wanted to say thank you. This is the first time I've done something like this, and you guys have been very welcoming, smiles in the crowd, and I appreciate you.
Awesome.